Tom Rudy, a question for Representative Rehberg.
Yes, Representative Rehberg. You have criticized the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, but you've also cut the ribbon on a road project that used stimulus money. In February 2009, you credited yourself for securing $42.5 million for Montana projects in that year's consolidated appropriations bill. That's according to your website. And the very next day decried the $410 billion bill for wasteful spending that wasn't scrutinized close enough. You have mostly voted the party line and accused your opponent of voting with Barack Obama 95% of the time, yet you have also said, I agree with the president when he says we need to roll up our sleeves and find workable solutions that put partisanship aside. That comment was made when you asked Democrats Brian Schweitzer, Max Baucus, and John Tester to join you in inviting Barack Obama back to Montana for a 7th time in 2 years so you could talk about the opportunities and challenges facing our great state. Representative, why should Montanans trust that you're the conservative you now suggest you are?
If you think about the budget in America, we spend as much as $4.5 trillion. The difficulty is we bring in $3 trillion and we spend $4.5. Within that, we can set priorities. There's no reason that we can't create an economic stimulus that's truly going to stimulate the economy. It's not my numbers, it's the Wall Street Journal's numbers. Of the $1 trillion that was borrowed against the debt, 12 cents on the dollar went to something that was stimulative. Some of that was the construction project. The difficulty is the other 88 cents on the dollar went to things that was pure spending. If I go out on my ranch and I need to buy a new stock trailer and it costs $15,000, I better assume that I can return at least $15,000 to $1 or $100 or $500, or it's a pure expense. And that's the problem with the stimulus. It was pure expense. There was stimulative efforts within the stimulus plan, but the problem is it didn't create the jobs. It wasn't timely. It wasn't targeted. It wasn't temporary. It didn't stimulate the economy the way it was intended, and there were other ways to do it. You could have done it through a reduction in the corporate tax of 35 to 25%. You could have done it by suspending the payroll tax on employers and employees for 1 year. That would have cost the same $1 trillion. That would have put money in the pockets of every small business in America. The florist, the chiropractor, the engineer, the farmer. They didn't get that. So there's a way to stimulate the economy. This was not the way to do it.
Thank you. Senator Tester, 1 minute.
Yeah, the Recovery Act. You want to talk about what it did? It gave $500 million in tax relief for working families and small businesses. Across the board, $500 million. That's for the state of Montana, by the way. That's not for the whole country. That's for the state of Montana, $500 million. It made it so emergency folks like policemen and firefighters and teachers could stay on the job because states were in equally as bad a shape. Thankfully, Montana was governed by Brian Schweitzer, and he had the state in better shape. But overall, the states were in as tough a shape as the federal government. And finally, an investment in infrastructure. We talked about the courthouse. I talked about the Shiloh Road. But there were infrastructure projects all over the state. I talked to a worker in building curbs and working in water systems when these projects were being awarded. He said, I wouldn't have a job now if not for that. Remember this. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month before the Recovery Act. After the Recovery Act, we saw that flatten out, and then we started to see job creation. We were on the cusp of a financial meltdown. Something had to be done. This was the right move.
Representative Rehberg, 30 seconds.
Nobody suggested that we're not going to spend money. Government is necessary. We want police, we want fire, but those are expenses. If you're still going to stimulate the economy, you don't do it with one-time expenses. You have to build, you have to grow, you have to create jobs. And how do you create jobs? By unleashing the small businesses of Montana and America. And you don't do it by piling more debt. We're in our 4th year of over $1 trillion debts in this country, deficits, adding to our debt. And since he's been a United States Senator, it's doubled from $8 trillion to $16 trillion. We cannot continue down that same path.